immigration sites for their hearings. Because General DeWitt wanted nobody on the west to be on the West Coast. So if you were arrested in Los Angeles, by law, by the Geneva Convention, you were supposed to have your hearing right there and then, but because of DeWitt's not wanting people, they were transferred, like to Fort Missoula in Montana or Fort Lincoln in North Dakota, and that's where they had their hearings, which were basically kangaroo hearings that found them disloyal, and therefore they were interned. What happened here? Oh dear. I gotta turn off. I have to turn off. Excuse me. I have to turn off the Wi-Fi. Wait, let me see. All these things will pop up. Okay. So I'm going to start by having you look at the map. You see the map? How is it up there? That's not good. All right. We all know that there was the mass incarceration of all the Japanese on the West Coast. And can you see on the map the triangles? Is it the triangles that are the mass incarceration sites? And then you see other sites listed there. And one of the other sites are called I can't read it. Someone read what the intervention and Army facility site. No, just the Army. Oh, you can make it a note.
Okay, so starting from the top, you see WCCA Assembly Center. Beneath that triangle, WRA Relocation Center. Below that, the square, WRA Isolation Center. Next circle underneath that, WRA Temporary Camp or other WRA facility. And finally, the stars, Justice Department, U.S. Army, or other facilities.
So it's the last two on the list where people who were arrested were interned. And we use the word interned because that's the proper language for those people. Unlike people who were in the mass incarceration camps, now we say they were incarcerees, and some people say they were in prison. So I'm sorry we started early. I see all these people coming in. There are lots of seats. There are a few seats available on this side and back there, so you can come and do it. I want to show you one more slide that kind of talks a little bit about the differences between the DOJ arrest and the mass incarceration arrest. This is a short abbreviation. I need to read it. So, the DOJ arrests were directed at non-citizens, mostly what they call aliens. They were Issei's Pichat, and later Nisei's Pichat, and later from Nisei's from Tulare, also went to the DOJ camps. But this particular workshop is only dealing with the arrest and the people who were arrested. They were called, considered prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention. That's why, unlike all of the people in the mass incarceration, they had a so-called kangaroo hearing. And in total, 17,477 they think were arrested. Oh, thank you. Okay, so the others were directed at everybody, citizens, babies, orphans, and there was no hearing. You were judged disloyal and sent to the camps. And finally, there were between 1,100 and 1,120 who were incarcerated. What did they have in common? Well, the causes: racial prejudice, war hysteria, and leadership. And it was initiated without any single Japanese threatening the country, or in the end, as you all know, everybody received reparations and an apology. So moving on, many of you know where Koski is? Yay! It's here in Idaho, in northern Idaho. And
It's Kuski. No, Kuski.
Kuski. Oh, Kuski, okay. At first I thought it was Kuskia, and then someone told me Koski, and it's Kuski. Okay. Who said that? Are you from there?
No, but I worked there.
You worked there?
Yeah.
During the war or after?
No. For the phone company. For the phone company.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, you're kind of young to work there now.
But it's Kuski.
Kuski, thank you. So, originally it was a CCC camp, and then it became a prisoner camp, just a regular prisoner camp. And then, am I moving this? Oh, this is where the camp employees worked. And then it became a work camp. People who went there volunteered, they had to be screened to go. And they started going there in, I think, June of 1943. And this was a camp where, the interesting thing is, it was almost all Japanese. There was one German and one Italian. Most of the Department of Justice camps had Italians and Germans as part of their group. Okay, so, I'd like people to read this. So someone up here in front, Lisa, do you have a loud voice?
Sure. So introduced not prisoners of war, POWs in the U.S. during World War II. Japanese, 17,477, so 54%. German, 11,507, 36%. Italian, 2,730, 8.5%. Other, 185.6%. Total, 31,899.
So that's the number in all of the Department of Justice camps. So by the way, even though it was an army camp, eventually all the camps were run by the Immigration Department. Yeah. And you all know that Fort Sill was one of the Department of Justice camps. So most of the internees, when they were sent to one camp and had their hearing, they moved through maybe a half a dozen to a dozen camps all across the country. So all those little spots that are there, they may have gone to those different spots. So this is Kuski, right? Okay, so Kuski was a work camp, and it was set up to build roads in northern Idaho. I believe those roads are still there. And one of the incentives was, let me check my notes. Well, I can't read them, but they got like $58 to $65 a month. Compare that to what? $21 a month. So they got a big salary. So people were really incentivized to come out there. Here are a few of the here are the few of the people that went there. Thanks. Let me see. So you can see that there's a store owner from Seattle, someone from New York City, someone from Los Angeles, and someone from San Francisco. So they came from all over. One of the leaders was this man, Reverend Hosen Seki, and he has an interesting record. He was not arrested until January 1943. He was a minister, Buddhist minister in New York, and they kept an eye on him. And the minute he was arrested, he went to Ellis Island, and from Ellis Island, I think he went to Santa Fe, and that's where he had his hearing. But, are you familiar with this? This is it looks like they're criminals, isn't it? It looks like this is his record as an enemy alien. There were 27 people from Peru. You know, the Peruvians were kidnapped. South Americans were kidnapped and brought to camps, all of the camps here. Some of them were in internment camps. Many of them went to crystal cities with their families, but there were 27 people from Peru, and this is a picture of one of the Peruvians. Here's an overview of the camp. It's beautiful, isn't it? With the river and the mountains and the forest. And just a news article that, you know, when they came into the town and people kind of eyed them with suspicion. Their trucks, so they came to the train, and on the train they took trucks to the camp. Of course, they were prisoners of war, so their mail was censored. If you get their doc, if you have a relative, later Melissa is going to talk to you if you want about how to get those enemy alien records, and you'll find that many of their documents have been censored, they've been blackened out. This is 5 people. Can you see those 5 on a pinnacle? I know the people in Idaho know how beautiful their state is, but this is a really different experience than the swamps of Arkansas or the sagebrush of all the other camps. Okay. This one man said, this camp reminds me of being in Yosemite. Like all the other camps, the men were self-sufficient. At first they were complaining about food, but once they got these state cooks in, they thought food was a lot better. They slept like in bunks, and some of the bunks are doubled. I don't have a picture of them, of that. I want to read you what this man says. At Sayaya Yoshimura, he says, "This was the first day of my new job since we came out here, and it's not merely a job, but a real He-Man job. I drive dumping trucks, and you ought to see the size of the trucks. There you go, on the edge of the road. Whoa. What? Dangerous, huh? So, because the men who ran the camps, they also have to do like cleanup, like I said, the cooking, but they only got paid, instead of 55 or 65 a month, they got paid 80 cents per day. And nobody would volunteer to do that work. So with the first 100 or so people that came to Kuski, they got together and said, we're gonna just split our salary. No matter what it is, we're gonna split our salary, and everyone's going to be paid the same. So that's kind of the standard they set. So they were able to get the services that they needed to run the camp with. You know, because they were in the Geneva Convention, they had quite a bit of, well, I won't say that, but they claimed that they had more rights than the people in the mass incarceration sites. Timekeeper, working on the roads. They had sent a letter of complaint, but it got censored, so it was never, the complaint section was censored out and was never received. But the next time they sent a letter of complaint, they sent it to the officer in charge of Fort Missoula, another detention center, and they were complaining about the treatment that they got from their director there. So here's the director. All right. Now, I just thought this was an interesting slide. This man came to Kuski claiming to be a doctor, but it turns out that he wasn't, and in fact, he had 14 aliases. And when they discovered it, they sent him back. So this is the Italian doctor, one of the Italian incarcerees there. And after he left, the next doctor was German, the other German incarcerated at Kuski. They had their own dentist, someone who was arrested, but at least they didn't have someone with 14 aliases. I want to show you a few pictures of what they did for recreation. They were very well organized. Like in the incarceration sites, they had their own leaders, they had block leaders, they had secretaries, they had people that copied down stories and made their own newspapers with. But, oh, I forgot this picture. He's the man who made the false teeth. Just a beautiful picture of false teeth. And I'm going to skip ahead to the recreation that they were doing. Carving. They were having classes. They played musical instruments. They danced. They also got to see films, sitting outside the film. They actually did handcrafts. Look at this pillow cover. I don't know why he made it with USA, but he did. And the crafts that we're so familiar with here. They had a canteen. And they made their own boats to go fishing. So they made these boats and went fishing with them. Guess what? They have a softball team, even in Kuski. I thought this was interesting. It shows them playing ping pong, but the note says they have mats for martial arts, which they hid from the camp officials. So they must have practiced martial arts. So they're playing go. Oh, I thought I did that one. And this is a anniversary picnic. 4th of July relay race. New Year's. Oh, here's another picture of the canteen. What are they doing here? Mochi. New Year's dinner. Thanksgiving dinner. And one man, I think others, but the one that's kind of been featured is his husband, Seki, who is the leader. His family from New York came out for a week to visit him. And they stayed in one of the employee cabins and with him. Also, remember I mentioned that they were at the Geneva conference, Geneva Convention. They were under the guidelines. So a neutral consulate from Spain came and inspected the camps. Oh, they also got a complaint from a resident that said, how come these people get to buy beer and we can't even get beer where we live and we're not in prison? They got to buy beer because that was their right under the Geneva Convention. And I'm going to skip ahead. Eventually, the camp started to close. People were being released. There weren't even men to do the work, and it was really difficult to get parts to repair the roads. So most of the people went to another DOJ camp. If they were lucky and got a hearing to be released, they went to see their families, live with their families in a mass incarceration site. So that's it for this part. Now we're going to figure out this difficult thing. Because you're going to read, and I'm not quite sure how we'll do it. But we're going to ask you to be in groups of 4, and we're going to give you the story of one man, Kaji Ikea from Portland, who was arrested on December 7th, and he went to Minidoka. I'm not going to tell you his whole story because you have to read. Everybody is going to read. One is going to read about his arrest. One is going to read about his hearing. And we won't have a lot of time for reading. And one is going to read about the impact on him and his family. And then, oh, we're driving people out. This is supposed to this is supposed to be a mini workshop, not a lecture. I'm a teacher, formerly a teacher and a principal, and you know, we never do all the work. We make the students do all the work. You're not students, but you're part of our program, and I think it'd be a better discussion for you to read, even if you can't share all your readings, and share your readings with each other, and then we'll talk about it briefly. So, yeah, what are you doing? Yeah. And if you don't want to read, just say pass, but you'll have to sit there for 15 minutes. And, what do you think?
That right here. Kind of thing I do in my class, right?